Okay, right. So this is just the nomenclature. Okay, so we've got the dream catcher. We control that. The state is what happens during the game. The stack is the queue. The tracer bullet itself. I've got. What I'm doing is rather than at this point having an open-ended game, I'm writing down
Oh, that's good. Yeah, but
I'm going to do.
bots that bots that got created. That's good. So
Right.
part of what you're about to show me here is the workflow you expect to see when you are creating new bots within the Dreamcatcher and then interacting with them, right?
Yeah, and what I'm trying to do is constrain myself. At each time something happens, it can only happen with a bot or some kind of system call, and the constraints are within the card actions. So do this, and that's all we can do. Now, if I can't explain each of the state changes as cards, then I've missed something. And it's also got to explain, okay, so who kicks it off, who does it, and what does it do. And then that gives me a list of bots about, well, okay, so if you're referring to a bot to do this, that's a bot, and then I need to write a session prompt for that. And if it's calling on something that's been done in the past, that's been called on, for example, here's a template. We need that template. So that's the kind of example. So for example, creating a new how needs Dave to register and kick off the creation of the how, because you can't talk to the how. This is a bit of a base case, but bear with me. So Dave's registered. The system needs to kick off the creation of his how, and that needs to be registered somewhere, and someone's got to pay for it. That's the kind of rule of thumb.
Okay.
So the narrative is at each point. This is one tracer bullet through it, and the aim of the tracer bullet is to be as awkward as possible. And as you go through the narrative, if I can't state what happens next based on those rules, then either I need to create a new rule, new bot, new system call, or something. It's a stub. It's just like, for example, there's a conversation. It's like, okay, so that needs to happen. Messaging, for example, offline for between when Dave's not online and Hal wants to like say something at the next conversation proactively, distribution event, and so on. So unless I can hold by these rules, it means either I'm not thinking clearly enough, and therefore you don't know what to build, or we've gone wrong. We need to like go back and rethink.
Okay.
So that's the kind of the acid test of it. Okay, so this isn't complete yet, but this is the tick. So what happens? Assuming this is a card game, and you're sitting around, with your fat geeky friends. What's this round to do? But that's not complete yet, so I'm not going to go into that. Okay, now I'll go into the narrative because this will be interesting to see whether you find it interesting. So what I'm trying to do here, I've done the first 3 chapters. Okay, so let's say what this chapter aims to do. It's like, okay, register and create a how. Okay, how chats backwards and forwards. Therefore, now we need some kind of place to put that session. If and we have defined how as being personal to Dave. That's the naming convention. It's really obvious, I guess. So every Dave has a personal how. I need somewhere to save that session. That would be some kind of system call to save that, so how can recall it in the future. And then the things that Dave does is, well, okay, so he's going to be asking to do something. In this case, by news article. Okay. So the next, so that's a stuck. Dave 1 is saying, I would love a news article. How discerns the intent and creates the stuck. Now that kicks off a whole bunch of things. Number 1, I need a session prompt to discern intent. And number 2, I need some kind of action that creates a stuck. I'm using this kind of naming format. It'll work for now. Okay, so number 2, new Dave. Dave 2 comes through and writes the article. Now we've got what happens if someone looks at a stuck, offers something up, and offers it up as a merge request. Like, okay, so got a stuck here. Is that good? Now, number 1 on behalf of number 1. So that's the first interesting thing. Can a personal how act on behalf of Dave if Dave is off drinking beers and eating pizza?
Yep, absolutely. That's the point of how.
Yeah. So how, on behalf of his Dave, considers the merge request, compares it with the intent, which we've already stored, and rejects it in this narrative. Okay, and then messages how number 1, messages how number 2, how number 2 being Dave's how, and gives feedback. Fine, saying that's shit, mate. Then how 2 tells Dave 2 next time he logs on. So what that looked like is, right, Dave, you wrote this draft and it's been rejected, but here's the feedback. Okay, so this is not yet a help. This is just like, you could, put in ASDF again and again. It's been rejected. It's not good enough, right? So it's not a help yet. So then Dave 2 and how to have conversation with feedback. Here's another function that would be very helpful. How 2 then chats independently to how 1, interrogating on the intent with a couple questions. It's like, you said that it needed to be about this. We provided that. Where did we go wrong? So this is entirely behind the scenes. But again, it's like the important thing is who pays for these cycles, and what's the state change.
Now, are you trying to make the actual article for the uni assignment, or are you trying to make a bot that makes the uni assignment?
At the moment, Dave's just turned up and saying, "Hey, I need this article written." He's not trying to write any bots. He's trying to.
He's just like, I have a problem. My problem is I need to produce this article for uni.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is just one tracer bullet, but I think it's quite an interesting one. You'll see further down. So Dave 2 fixes it because his HAL has talked to the other HAL and given him feedback based on the questions Dave goes. So the session goes, the Dave 2, the writer, talks to how to talk to HAL 1 without bothering Dave 1, gives responses back and saying, this is where you fucked up, man. And so there's a new draft. Fine. Okay. So then it's another merge request and accepted this time based on the intent. And this is, again, all at AI level. So the intent has been met. How 1 checks his initial thinking. Now, this is an interesting thing. So, and this came up when I was writing this. So what I've got is messy, draft, and initial triage where the HAL of the Dave who created the stuck says that's good enough, but that's not good enough to. So I skipped over this. There's like $100 for writing this article. That's not good enough to put out the escrow, and so then given the initial judgment that the intent has been met, let's get the judge. Now the judge is emerging as the escrow guy. It's like,
it's a QA.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that might be a better one, but better terminology. But how to, as said, here it is. Here's how one has asked for it. There's $100 in escrow. Um, is this good enough? Sorry, it's up here. Judgments. Is it good enough? He says yes. Brilliant. Okay. Then it needs the need to release escrow. I've identified that there's probably either a system call or.
Why did you say that how one checks his initial thinking by asking the judge? Why
because
would
the judge is quite expensive, and
so here at up to step 5, Hal thinks that this stucco 1 has been solved with help, with the help that was made.
Yeah, well, with the session interaction and the drafts, the draft isn't a help yet because it's still shit. But then he gets a draft and think, actually, that meets the intent as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, and then he passes it to a judge and says, "Is this good enough to be a help? And do you think it's good enough to pass the escrow?"
Right. Yeah, and that escrow release is the point where that article now becomes a help. So it's a chunk of text that could be used, as many times as you want to be used, and the dollar amount is being released. Notice that at no point have we asked Dave whether he's okay to pay that $100. So the Dave's how is there to just triage. It's like let's filter out some really obviously shit responses. But if it's close enough, I don't know enough yet. So it passes to the judge, passes the intent. But the judge can also run it against different models. And with this intent and this article, is that good enough? And the intent can say what good enough is. This needs to be, I think, I was saying it's about China, an article about China.
Okay.
So, and then it's like, okay, a message back. Everyone gets told, much delight, money changes hand. Okay, so this is where it gets a bit more interesting. So Dave 3 comes along wanting a news website, noting that we've just created a news article. Okay, wants to he wants an article for that news website. Dave 3 registers prior art, so he's got a blank WordPress site that he wants to turn into a news website. Fine. Now this is something I've not really considered. It's like, well, if you're bringing something in the game, into the Dreamcatcher game, there needs to be some kind of process where you're saying, this is not a help that's been generated by Dreamcatcher. This is an artifact
data.
I want to bring into it. Yeah. And in this case, I've gone simple. It's like a blank WordPress site, and it's like, but that exists. So
yeah, data is everywhere. I think in the Dreamcatcher, it's not helps are like executables in the Dreamcatcher.
Yeah.
So in the Dreamcatcher, helps are to data as exes are to files on your computer.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we've now got. Let me drill into that. Sorry. Helps are to data as exes are to files. A help, the way I'm looking at the moment, a help wraps up a payload along with what it offers and its history. Let me show you, and this is the value of doing this. Okay, so
I thought that a help was something, a piece of AI interpretable or machine interpretable instructions. Help is instructions.
I can apologies. This is fuck. Sorry. We're back.
Are you okay? What am I doing
Yeah.
something?
No. My connection dropped out again.
Oh,
And I swore
yep.
in
In Scottish.
yeah, well, actually in ancient Anglo-Saxon. Um, right. So so this is the whole point of this. It's kind of
Yeah.
making me precise. So a help at the moment. Okay, description. The description is it's like a payload. Who owns it? Who draws on it? What events have been happening? So it's created and so on. A log of what's already happened in metrics, which I'll go into in a second, which is really quite interesting and love your view on. But what you're saying is the help is an exe that so that means that the in this case the article is what we used to call an artifact.
The article's an artifact, yeah, because it's
Right. Okay.
it's an
No, that's really
it's
useful.
an output. Help is instructions, just like exes are instructions for the computer. Help is instructions for the Dreamcatcher.
Yeah.
Those instructions can be machine code or AI code, but
Well,
data and
this
exe
is
should never be mixed because
this.
you can try and execute any file on your computer,
Yeah.
but you will have limited results.
Well, this is an interesting one. Okay, this sounds like a rabbit hole, but this is something I've been thinking about a lot. Is a jitter a help? I think it is.
A jitter
Um,
is a combination of helps, an
um,
assemblage.
sure, but the help is you've got these artifacts available, and you can perform this operation on those helps. That sounds a lot like a
Yeah,
cheat.
I think that the limiting form of a jitter is a single help, but my expectation is that in practice, jitters will compose of um, helps plus other types of instructions like UI elements, like different kinds of like the jitter bundles up the help plus the
Right.
executable tooling and anything else, services, other stuff that you want to use to augment the AI piece.
Yeah.
The help is pretty much I think the help definition is that it's in-L programming. And so a jitter you could make a jitter with just one piece of in-L programming, but typically I would expect the jitter to combine some traditional programming with some in-L programming plus multiple different discrete components of those types of thing.
Right. This is really interesting. Let me do a kind of red team on that. So I think we can.
Why? Can I ask that we're gonna get stuck on this and it doesn't really
Yeah. Okay.
matter because
Right.
I just need what am I building? Going
Yes.
over the intricacies of what a help is or isn't.
It's kind of
I still
fundamental.
got to build. Yeah, but it's not going to change what I have to build. And in fact, building it to like the story that you're writing is great because this is what an end user determines. The fact that we're fuzzy about helps and that'll shake out. We just got to get
Yeah.
the
Well,
system in front of people.
I think probably the fastest way to get what you want is I'm just going to make a few assumptions in that a help. I like the distincting static data from a help, which is the kind of wrapper for that. How do you use that static data, or what's it useful for, and perhaps the history around it, or definitely the history around it, and so on.
Helps don't need to have static data in them, but
No, it's uh, well, a help, for example, a help in this case would be there is this article, it does this, here's the history of this, and here's the article. Separate. The payload is what we're talking about, the artifact, right? Now you could not get into intricacies. I'll make I'll go through this and make an argument, and we can talk about the intricacies when we get there. But I think we can actually get rid of jitter as a separate thing, and have it as a help at the point of use. If something uses something, then we store it for later use if anyone cares.
Okay,
And
I disagree, but I don't think it matters for the purpose of this narrative.
Okay, all right. Right, let's go back to where we're at then. So I'm going to fast forward again because it's probably going to take too much time. At each point when there's an action, identifying. Okay, so I'm just doing.
Man, this is a bad experience. Yeah, I think you're back. I can hear you complaining. Hello.
Hello again. That's getting annoying. It's getting generally annoying. Okay, right. Moving on. I'll take you through a high level anyway. So
Okay.
you get the idea. What I'm identifying is stuff that needs to be done, and if it needs to be done, then that emerges as either a bot doing something live with chats between bots or between Dave. It's a help, which is something that is pre-packaged and does that and can be assessed, or it's a system call and results in state chains. So this is a bit where it got to get interesting. So what we've got here in this narrative is we've got one guy who's written an article, another guy who's written a news website. Fine. The guy with the news website has created a bunch of stocks for 2 more articles. Okay. And those get written. Fantastic. The website wants to use the article that was previously written, the very first one. So now we've got an article, an artifact that is being used in something else that's generating value. However, the guy who wrote the article has been paid $100 from the guy who wanted the article, the uni guy, and that article is now in a website. You still there? You're going very quiet.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm listening.
Oh, yeah. No, you're just not. Your avatar's not moving. It's disconcerting.
Neither is my body. Okay.
So, uni dude wants an article. It's done. A website guy wants a news website. Commissions a couple other articles. They go back and forth, draft, that sort of thing. The articles that he's commissioned
That's a good story.
Goes into the news website as well as the one that was actually created before
for
the website.
for the uni thing, right? So that shows technology reuse.
Right, exactly. Now the website starts to earn ad revenue.
Sponsor is spelled wrong.
There's lots of spelling mistakes because
I'm
using text editors.
I'm using my hands.
So
sorry, I wrote this by hand.
The website generates ad revenue, and that ad revenue is known by the Dreamcatcher.
Okay,
but doesn't pay out anything yet. Okay. All right, next one. Each individual ad revenue. So now we've got 3 articles on a website where you've got revenue on that page from a quantifiable thing, clicks on that page, and it's like, okay, so we're going to pay out to this. Now, before that, each of those article guys were paid out an escrow. Okay, so that goes into your paid. Now there's ad revenue, and for this scenario, the ad revenue is more than that. So they're owed something. So there's a debt. there.
Are you telling me that if the ad revenue was not as much as the escrow, they wouldn't be owed something?
No, I think they wouldn't. I think if you got paid out $100 and it was used for a value that generated $90, you're already paid. I don't see how we could claw back anything. But if you used that article and generated $1,000, then some portion of that should be owed to the guy that has already been paid, but the thing that they produced actually turned out to be higher value or higher impact, knowing what we know now after a few clicks.
How can you say that the AI assessment swarm would choose to do that?
Well, this is the thing. There are I think there are metrics that can become known to the DC, and all the DC is doing is considering that. Now, that's not the same as getting paid out. That's just saying, well, okay, so we now know that this guy who's working on the DC has got a website, and he's offered up the ad revenue.
I think that calculation is not for you to say. That calculation is for the bots to say, and there are obviously three ways that could go. Right, one is they say the revenue should be sent, some of it to the people who got paid the escrow. The revenue should not go anywhere, or the revenue goes entirely to the revenue goes to both, or the revenue goes to the person who paid the escrow.
That last one's interesting. But yes, I agree. This is number one, entirely bots. We're introducing.
Why is the last one interesting?
We've okay. So if you have someone who's paid escrow, that's an event in the past. Practically speaking, can we pull money back from that? Now we can say that there's a moral debt. So then
you have no idea. You have no idea if that escrow payment was a fair thing to pay for what was produced.
No, but there was an event where someone was willing to offer that escrow payment.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's an earthing event. Someone valued that as $100.
Right. Doesn't mean it's worth $100.
Right. It might be worth less, but practically speaking,
it might be worth more too.
But the escrow's already been paid out automatically.
Yeah. But now we're talking about ongoing earnings from that artifact.
Yes, but there's two ways to go here. Potentially, you could say, I paid you $100. Actually, I only made $50 from that. Therefore, you owe me $50. And I can't claw it back, but now you're in negative, or you're in debt to me for $50 because I didn't make, even, the stakes of it. So the next time that, that particular Dave says, all right, okay, I've got another article for $100. And, the author goes, I could write that, but actually I'm going to have to pay off $50 for the previous debt because you didn't manage to monetize that. But you already accepted that the article was good enough. I don't have any control what you do with the article. Maybe you overpaid, but the escrow was an offer and acceptance. And so
yeah, but that does I don't like the sound of that, but it does sound like, to consider all data, we should be considering also how much was the escrow and was it ultimately worth it. Obviously no one knew any different at the time, but as time has gone by and more knowledge has come to light, the bots should have an opinion on whether that was a good deal or not.
I guess we don't need to enforce it, do we? We could say that
it's always a suggestion, right? And the you can pay any amount you want for escrow, and anyone can take it. the bots will calculate out that that was not really fair, but they're not going to enforce it. They're just going to calculate it and look at you and be like, "That's
Right.
what the calculation was. Take it or
Right.
leave it." I mean,
Yeah, and further down, we'll go into this because it gets. There's a few test cases down here I'd love your view on
mm,
about how all this is accounted for in your wallet. And
yeah. So with this ad revenue coming in, the bots, depending on what the bots rule, they're going to have an opinion on how that revenue should be split. You don't have to stick to it. You can pay more than what the bots say you should pay out, or you can pay less. But
right,
the bots will have an opinion, and it's not for any preset rules to say, up until the value of the
yeah,
escrow,
okay,
right?
no, that's fine enough. So what we're saying is, every time there's an event which adds information,
Yeah,
onto
it's not about
this,
it's not
it's
about the
like,
revenue. It's about the information that the revenue
yeah,
provides.
it's like you. I guess it does. You got an escrow payment of $10, and this thing ended up generating $1,000. You got paid $1,000, and it ended up generating $10. Let's just note that.
Yeah, right, right, and
Okay.
it's
Yeah. Okay.
it not only influences what the bots do in the future, but it influences your search rankings. Because if if you sold something for $1,000 and a person only made $10 back, and they, like the bots will also have an opinion on the projected earnings of the thing as well. So if the bots got the projection wrong and you didn't really make that much, then the whole system kind of owes you because
Yeah.
you took a hit for the team.
Yeah. Okay. So let's add that in. So despite the fact that you got paid, we're not trying to pull it back, but we're saying
No, it's just part of
it
the
really wasn't worth it.
calculation. It's
And
part of the calculation.
yeah, okay, good. You see, actually, this hopefully comes up as we go through these chapters because it gets
This is
more.
great. I love this exercise. This helps me see, it gives me what I want, and it helps me see how you're thinking about it. And this is a great little story. Like, there's a
Yeah,
lot going on here, and it's believable and practical.
yeah, great. That was my aim on this call is to
Mm.
just get your steer about whether this is worth my time
No, this is
pursuing.
great. This is great.
So the next chapter. Now we've got the overall website, which has got 3 articles on it. Gets revenue for the website itself, not for an individual article. Um, so now we've got information about the amalgamation of disparate articles,
Yeah.
artifacts, and the value is generated from.
Okay.
So right, so now we've got additional information that. Oh, fuck's sake!
I can still hear you. I can still hear you.
Fuck's sake! Oh, sorry. I'm getting really irritated. Anyway, right, now we've got information about the value of bundling together um, different artifacts into a whole, which the whole might be more valuable than the sum of the individual parts. Okay, right, here's where it gets interesting because we kind of bloom out here. One article is linked by another website. Okay, we haven't used that metric before. So right now we've got a new metric, and this is the thing we were talking about yesterday. In terms of how do we measure this? I'll go into what my suggestion is, but that's a quantitative thing. It's like that is one link, and that one link could also say it's been linked by the Wall Street Journal or it's been linked by some random dude, blog that has no traffic. So those are numbers, which we've now got. Another article is quoted by a national newspaper. So now we're into the real world. Okay, so that's another new metric. It's like, what's the how many people read that newspaper? What's their revenue? What's a quote worth? However, we've got a fact. There's a brute fact there. It's like, hey, you quoted this in the national newspaper. I go further down into this, where the website gets an offer to buy it. Okay, so now the website, of which we've got
So the
three
news
articles.
website has basically business is booming, and
Yeah.
someone asked to buy out the website, and so we're trying to figure out what's the Dreamcatcher's view on who gets what cut from that sale, right?
Right.
But
Exactly. And
also,
interesting.
like, is the Dreamcatcher going to have an opinion on the price, given that it's being purchased by a non-Dreamcatcher member?
It could. It could. I hadn't considered that. I was putting
So
this
the
in as
right,
it's
so
just a statement of fact.
the projection of that should be calculating the valuation of the entity all the time anyway. Like it should be that should be just part of the running tally. Is like
Right.
here's your valuation now. Here's your valuation in sort of 3 years based on these assumptions, and so
Right.
you should always know what you're worth in that sense.
Well, exactly, and that's very practical to do because remember that the website itself has been registered inside the Dreamcatcher, and the Dreamcatcher has access to external information and
I think that
can
having an
judge it.
opinion on external information is par for the course. I think that's a regular thing. Like we induct new information if someone points our tooling at an existing business and just clicks assess and provides the credits to run that assessment. That's
Right.
now internal information that we can process any way we like. And so having being able to look outside of our own internal data and appraise the value of things out there is pretty fundamental, I think, to
Uh,
what the functionality we want to offer is.
I think so. And again, all of this, I'll not go through it, but all of this is like, okay, so what bots and what system calls are we calling in order to do this? But the interesting thing is this offer is not accepted, but adds value because now you've got some dude who wants to buy this
Hmm.
website. So you've got a datum there,
Right.
quantifiable datum,
Right.
saying, I want to buy this for $1 million.
Yep.
So, but, that
Yep.
million
That's
dollars
fine. That
isn't
can
actual.
just
Yeah.
that would be inducted in the running valuation of this of the entity.
Right. And this is the kind of forward modeling thing. It's like, should that offer be accepted? It percolates all the way down to usually
Yeah,
contributors
right,
and saying,
right.
hey,
But that would the ability or the skills involved in it's like those projection tools should be pluggable. They're not actually Dreamcatcher core because you can pick any set of tools you like. It doesn't. The projection doesn't really matter. It just you just pick the version you
oh,
like,
yes, yes,
right?
that's, I
We
agree.
got to keep the
Yeah,
core as small as we possibly can. The core for us um, is looking back and saying what fair should be right now. Looking
yeah,
forwards
uh,
is not actually the
abs-
Dreamcatcher's business.
well, absolutely. And that really comes down to the only thing we come close to that is when we're talking about, I was talking about the kind of the what if assessment with everything the Dreamcatcher knows about.
Yeah,
Um,
that
but
is a
that's that.
set of tools that are we can provide a reference implementation of that, but we in no way need consensus or acceptance of those tools.
Right, right. It's just you're
But
asking another dude.
we
Just
have
happens
to
to be
have
a AI dude.
yeah,
Yeah,
like what do you think of this? But
yeah,
we have to have consensus on how does the attribution system go because that's the thing that everyone that's the fight
yes,
start. That's the troublemaker.
yeah. Now the thing I was calling out in this one is so there's the projection forward, the modeling forward, which this what we just talked about hints at. Is that's not actually that chapter. I think I'll
Mm.
get onto later on. However, this is a datum. There's a fact here. This website has been someone's put money on the table to buy it for X, and that's just a fact. There's no opinion there, but that's very interesting in terms of okay, so
Yeah, it's
what's the future
information that
value?
should be logged in the Dreamcatcher, and it's
Yeah,
something that our core intelligence can have an opinion on. It's like, oh, this,
Yeah, exactly.
right? But
Exactly.
it's not the set of helps that are assembled into how something that interprets that information is not baked into the core. That's free choice.
Yes, absolutely. And it's actually you can create any bots to help you with that, but also even inside of a one-off session, you can put your own filters on that, saying, yeah, I think this, and so on. And that's that modeling thing. It's like, fine, buyer beware. However, we've recorded a fact here that may be interesting. You may filter it out, saying, I don't care about any offers to buy. I care about how many people, like this, that sort of thing.
Right.
But it is a brute fact. Okay, so now riffing on that, where's my one article is quoted in a major. We talked about that. Right. Okay. So the Prime Minister of the UK refers to the website. Right. Now we're getting into the qualitative stuff. That is still worth knowing in NL.
Right. But since all the chapters from chapter 9, possibly before that, those are outside of the Dreamcatcher core.
Well, the chapter 9 is all really quite
because nothing. All that's happened here is chapter 8. Yep, the Dreamcatcher will issue an opinion there, I think. But all these other things are not. Are you suggesting here that because the article was linked to by another website, traffic went up and ad revenue went up, and now we're trying to assess which articles are worth what revenue?
No, I'm just saying that we've birthed a website with 3 articles through all this. That's the generative piece we were talking about. So we're generating stuff, and now we're logging information that we know about. We don't know how much.
Where does this trail end? Because it's sort of like, it feels like, like I don't have any tooling to add after chapter 8.
Yes, probably from this point onwards, what I've been trying to do is to understand when we record. Was it 2 calls ago? We were talking about we don't know what future assessments are going to regard as being valuable. However, we will record facts.
Well, we record everything, basically, is the
right.
position we want to get to.
We'll work on. So up to about chapter 9 thereabouts. That's just the creation of it and the linking of the contribution.
All right. Okay.
From this point onwards, we are noting against those contributions simple facts. We're not acting on this. It's like, okay. So I talked about it. Fine. In which there's another fact. There's a law enacted with recommendations in one article. Who knows what that's worth?
Right.
We can. That's qualitative. We're moving into the qualitative now. Right. Which the website receives a further offer to buy out, which is accepted. Now, maybe
that's a revenue event. That's
right,
that's a revenue event. We want to have
a number.
Yeah.
Right. We got a number.
Something occurred, and everything from chapter 9 up to chapter 14 may be parsed by the bots depending on how advanced we manage to get. But certainly, all that stuff is just information, and it would have been used by tools that tried to provide a projected value or an estimation system, but those are not core Dreamcatcher bots. Those are
no.
Those are opinions.
Absolutely. And what this is, we're capturing the pertinent information around these artifacts about what happened after. So It's like maybe it turns out that this law was really bad law, and ends up being,
Yeah, right. Like it could have been the start of dystopia. Who knows?
yeah, exactly. And maybe it was a brilliant law, whatever. But we're not making that judgment. We're just saying here is a statement of fact, which we'll record. And now, the quantitative stuff is more interesting because that's again that earthing event. It's like, okay, so you've received an offer which is accepted. Okay, so now that website has a dollar value based on someone's willing to exchange dollars for this. That's fine. Now, there's a bit of a fork here. One of the authors is Skint, sells his
Yep,
NFT.
that's a good story point. That one.
Yeah, so it's like what are the system calls? What are the bots that we need in order to do that? And what can we say about the value of that NFT? Do we say anything about that value of the NFT, or we leave it to the open market and so on? So I haven't thought about that much.
We know for a fact how much revenue has been received or distributed through the NFT. Projection tools can be supplied, none of which we will stand by because we're like, it's the future. But, here's some sort of start for 10 versions.
Right.
And we can say that here are some real world valuation methods. Like we're like, okay, if you took the 10 times the revenue multiple of this thing, then it's blah, 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 blah. Or here's these accounting methods that can be used to figure out what this thing's worth. But it's ultimately a case of take your pick. However, where we get sorry,
go on.
Where we get involved is when the next revenue distribution event comes in, we now consider that this person paid this much for this NFT or this portion of an NFT or something like that. And it sort of at that point, we're like, well, at the time the value was this, then later this happened, therefore the value was in excess or insufficient, or the buyer got more than they
that's exactly
where we get involved.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about before. So selling the NFT because he's skint for cash is an event, is a brute fact. We can record that. It seems to me similar to getting paid escrow. Brute fact, money changed hands.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
What we're saying about escrow is in the future, actually, that the value of what you produced might be less or more.
Or more. That's right. That's right. And just like the selling of the NFT, the price paid may or may not have been fair.
Right.
In the past.
It might be.
And so how the revenue is distributed it's not guaranteed. It's not like you bought it and now you're guaranteed to get everything, because that is allows for exploitation due to both knowledge gradients but also random spins of the fucking wonderful
the world just moves on, and
the world just moves on, right?
Article,
and so
nobody cares about it.
There's a dampening aspect of the Dreamcatcher where we actually the casino is more consistent. The odds are lower, and you don't get the whoopee as much. But
you know that
it's much more.
It's predictable.
It's much more predictable. It's much more stable, right? Because you can. I mean, for everyone who buys an NFT that goes to the moon, they don't tell you about all the ones they bought that fucking flopped to the floor, right? But that's what we're going out to. That's our battleground. Is fair value for eternity.
Yeah,
and every instant is more information, which should be more fairness, given that we can look back with greater hindsight clarity. Oh no, I lost you. Oh no. Oh dear. Every time. Hello, you're back again.
Not happy. I don't know whether. Oh, fuck it. Doesn't matter. Anyway, yes, yes. I think we're on agreement with them. So these events, the quantifiable events, are the really interesting thing because what we can say is, in retrospect, what
Yeah,
was that fair
that's
or
basically
not?
the tagline of the Dreamcatcher.
Yeah,
In retrospect,
yeah, yeah. Did you get shafted or did you
yeah,
quit
yeah,
in?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Dreamcatcher is predominantly backwards looking. It's predominantly historical. It uses
Oh,
the
that's
body of
interesting.
knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting because I'll go into how the NFTs and the structure of the NFTs, but the NFTs essentially have very similar to helps have a history of how they were come to be created.
Yeah, and so the
NFTs have
thing the area that we do get involved in projections is that we say that we so our goal as an organization is to publish a bot swarm that is the most agreed to, widely accepted version of what fair is, given all the facts you are aware of. The
right
only
without
place
defining fair. Yeah, yeah, exactly. What you're
without
saying.
defining fair and saying that it's an ever expanding thing, it's artificial intelligence is being applied to solve it because humans naturally
Right,
suck at it and
right.
AIs only sort of suck at it, and AIs are getting better, which means that fairness should get better too.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's basically defining this dynamic fairness ability that says fair is not a fixed thing, fair is a moving target.
yeah.
Here's a moving calculation that is constantly livened up by expanding understanding and events in the world.
Yeah.
And it leverages some fundamental properties of nature such that the further on from an event, the more information you have about the event in general. But
Yes.
the only time that we get involved in the future is when, if running our tools, they run entirely virtually, which means that we don't actually have a sense of time, we just have a sense of state. And
Yes.
so if you propose to us a hypothetical state and we run it, there's no difference fundamentally between what the answer we give is if those facts were true.
Right.
The
Yes. Yeah.
difference is that someone else has to tell us what the future looks like, and then given that, we will tell you exactly what our calculation will look like, keeping in mind that our calculation changes over time too in ways that we don't yet know. But if you make some assumptions and accept the current state, and you tell us what a future simulated state is, we'll calculate exactly how we would respond right now.
Exactly. And one of the things here, I've not gone into it in this narrative, but this is on my chit to do, is um, given. Okay, so they had offer to buy, which was accepted.
Hmm.
Stick in 10x on the offer. You know, what will be the impact?
That's
Um,
right. That's right. That's right.
Stick it in. Well, if there's anything else we can add in, let's say.
Right, right, right. Right,
Yeah,
right. So
example.
The Dreamcatcher attribution system starts to look like an API into which you can plug in a range of things where you're like add 10x, add
Right.
0.5x, and generate all this data so you can look at the future with multiple versions, like best case, worst case, probable,
Right. Right.
all these
Yeah. Yeah.
things. Like, we're not supplying the oracle that sees the future. We're supplying you a deterministic outcome that's guaranteed from us if what you say is true.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is something I struggle to explain, and also, frankly, I've altered since then. Yesterday, I was talking about that high level kind of assessment filter, which doesn't change the state.
Yep, the
But it's
view,
used, yeah, in the view.
or the
So
query,
for
I think you called it.
Yeah, so for example, right, given everything that the Dreamcatcher knows, I care about these filters. So, for example, this website would be great in Africa. So I only care about things that Africa cares about.
Mm.
And I'm going to give you dummy events. And that could be qualitative or quantitative. Let's say it's quoted by 5 prime ministers in Africa, and the views go up by X, which is quantitative. What would be the hypothetical, and that is a tool for actually making decisions. And there's a few decisions here. The base one is, as someone who creates stuff, um, was it worth creating? Was it worth my time? Now, remember that this article, as we see as we go down, is used in a number of places. So originally it was used on a website. Well, originally it was used as a uni course article.
Right.
Then was
It's
used on a
come a long
website.
way.
Yeah. Now it's used as Prime Minister, and now it's really valuable. And now it's being used as an article in a book. Now, the book uses the value of the article, but also because of the profile of the website. So now this is nuanced, and not a thing that you could model as a human. However, NLs ultimately might be able to do something about that. It's like, well,
Yeah, but there we would do the intermediate stage where for the multi-dimensional NFT, you would start to have this like popularity vector going off one way. And now how you collapse that down to the money dimension is, always contentious and difficult. But if we can defer the collapse as late as possible, then it carries more meaning for longer. And so all these sort of from chapter 9 up to chapter 18, all these things that you've um, said are events that happen, they would be captured as with as much fidelity as we could in the multi-dimensional um, vector NFT,
right.
because they don't need to be collapsed immediately, but you can look at that and be like, well, there's a huge impact on popularity here. And we know that if we see an NFT with a big popularity vector, it gets a big money vector sooner or later.
Right.
And so that's
Yes.
why you're like, that's why that should be valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And there seems to be like there's three. Sorry, I haven't come up with a better term yet because I haven't thought about it. But the observation events was referring to quantum, where it exists as a number of probabilities based
Yeah.
on some
Yeah.
state.
Yeah. So
That
you got to,
collapses at
someone
some point.
else has to give us the probability. We
Yeah,
will give you the outcome based on those probabilities. And that
yeah,
in itself, that's a very useful thing because, but
yeah.
that's
And
as
there's
far as we go with it. We don't tell you what the probabilities are. You need to do that.
exactly, and there seems to be two, arguably three, but let's go through events. There is like now, given everything, and therefore you collapse to okay. We're now just going to quantify the actual events, and we can do the distribution, or we can model a distribution, or you can do hypothetical events. Like say you're projecting forward,
Mm.
but also now moves further on. So arguably the third one is new information, and then there's a new now.
Yep. New now. When there's a
Yeah,
new now, there will be a new outcome, but the expectation is that that will stabilize
yeah,
because
yeah. It should,
um,
shouldn't it? Right? Because and
well,
also,
the more
um,
events you have and the more nows you have, the more the structure of the NFT will stabilize.
exactly, and also as new information comes in, for example, I chose news articles for a reason because they decay over time. It becomes less interesting, and then becomes history.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Arguably, history is less um, immediate revenue generating than news, except history might actually be then brought together in some kind of history book, which could actually add value and so on. So there is the idea that this value, every time you reassess now, you need to understand what is actually happened quantitatively, but also you can model based on the
When you say
coordinates.
quantitatively, what do you mean by that?
I mean matters of fact statements. I think I've called them.
Right, but
So
what's the difference with qualitatively?
matters of opinion. Okay, so here's an example. Um, uh, right. Right, in which a new user registers in order to say that the website has had a fundamental impact on their life. That's a qualitative thing. It's like, well, what is, you know, what's the unit there versus um, the website is being sold for cash. There's a number there, so there's a fundamental difference between those two.
Yeah,
But
but one
we
of the
don't
things
want
that
to
we've
lose
talked
that.
about doing with the bot swarm is to convert those things like fundamental impact into a value or a quantity, because it's like, well, quantity, fundamental impact relative to what?
Well, yes, exactly. And what I'm suggesting is we leave that to future generations not by not missing the opportunity to record something that may well be accessible with
Yeah, we
additional
want to
information.
record everything. We want
It's
to have
like,
all
well,
the world's
yeah,
data.
it's had a fundamental impact on your life. Okay, we don't know. Well, number one, whether that's true. Number two,
Mm.
what your life ended up doing. Maybe it goes on to earn a Nobel Prize. Maybe it ends up to be a drug dealer. Who knows? Um,
Yeah, right.
but
Maybe. Fucking.
but there's like,
Who
let's note
knows,
that.
man?
It's like, yeah, we've noticed. Okay, we'll noted with interest. We won't
Mm.
forget, and we'll allow bots in the future
Yep.
to
Okay.
assess that if they
All right.
can do
All
anything with
these
it.
all these chapters feel like we've gone far outside the bounds of what am I doing tomorrow.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. This is
How many more
um,
chapters are there?
not many. Okay, so when it's Pillar Surprise, it's a similar thing. Which one author wants to understand more about what should have been paid. So that's the assessment, which we've just been talking about, and then I can go on. However, right. So this is more for me to get my head around how attribution works because that is my current task on the top of the
Okay.
stack. The earlier stuff really comes down to contribution and how that's run, which is the
Right.
stuff that you can actually get your teeth into and saying, okay, so
Yeah. Okay. But none of that actually like, um, none of that covers writing a bot.
well, it's I should say that. Okay, so and again, remember that this is I'm not presenting this as a thing. I was just looking for a high level. Is this
That's a great
useful?
story. That's a great
Um,
little scenario, man. That's a great
so
little scenario.
in doing this, every time something happens, um, I need to know who is doing it. Dave is basically another bot. I'm just considering Dave as a bot. But we need bots because each bot I need to write session prompt for, and I need to link that down to basically a single function. What we asking, what we giving it, what we asking it to do, and what's it outputting, and as an incidental, who gets paid. So as I go through this, every time there's a state change, it's like, well, that's not going to happen by magic. The bots, there will be a bot needed. There will be a bot commissioning other bots, which is the bot swarm. Maybe one commissions many, comes back, async, and so on. There's the helps, which rethink in terms of the exe and file, and there's the cards, which are the state changes. But unless I can explain, if I can go through that, and it's going to get harder towards the end of that narrative. Unless you can explain it by referring to, right, here's a bot, which is essentially just a function. And that bot also has access to system functions, which is the thing that you're interested in. Unless I can explain it, then we haven't got it right. So the narrative is I think, really useful bullet. But as you see here, for example, well, this is one of the early chapters. It's like how, on behalf of one considers merge request. Okay, so considers merge request as a thing that would need to happen. And it's like, well, who does that? Is that a bot? Is that a system request? And so on. Messages. There's another thing that needs to happen. So any state change, what I'm aiming to do is to fill out each of these chapters with the bot or the state change that's required, and then list that back as to who can commission it, who does it, what does it do, what's the output, as in what's the state change, and who pays for it. That's the general gist of this, and it's going to get harder as we go further on, and it might be I don't get past chapter 9, but what I'm hoping to do is quite quickly get you those first 9-ish chapters, which is effectively the generation of helps and the use of helps, and then we can move on to attribution, which, as you see, is a bit of a different beast. But again, the same idea that I can give you a list of things that are required. I think I've got a to do somewhere. Maybe it's there. Where's to do? No. Yeah. Okay. I've got. It doesn't matter. I've got to do somewhere, which is every time I ask for something to be done, it needs to have some kind of black box that does it, and I'm defining it along those same layers. And some of those are system calls, some of them are bots. If it doesn't have something that is defined and exists, at least in this kind of pseudo weirdness, then who's going to do it? It's just going to be left hanging. So that's my general approach. So in terms of what to do, I mean, I'm sure you're thinking about, okay, so in general, what kind of system calls are going to be required? What sort of thing we're going to do? This is going to give you instances, but not generalities. So what you should expect, and see if this is going to be useful, is specific instances of, for example, update help with history. Kick off a bot that then can talk to another bot. It's that sort of thing. And now the generalities I'm not looking at, but because we're going through the narrative, this is kind of bottom up. The top down stuff I'm not looking at. So the question is there something you'd want in terms of generalities? Because I think you're, I know you're definitely better placed to think about.
Okay, how do you want the ability to reprogram HAL to go?
That would be another narrative that you'll think about. But HAL is no different from reprogramming another bot. So if there's a bot there, and someone comes along and saying I can improve that session bot, then that contribution is linked, and then whether the that fork is chosen over the previous one gives evidence about how useful it is. I don't see how being any different, other than we don't let the the unwashed masses.
Well, we will provide a default HAL, and you can alter it anytime you like, and you'll always have the ability to exit from your modified version.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a bunch of in answer to your question, how do we reprogram HAL? It's in exactly the same mechanism as how a bot is improved. Someone turns up, offers up improvement, then it's selected, and then there's a weight against that, and then further selection saying, well, that's a very popular one, this is a shit one, that one eventually dies, except that we don't allow just the unwashed masses to do that. That's something that we need to do, but that mechanism is still the same thing. It's like, okay, so we've got a session prompt for how we think that this one might be better. Okay, so now we've 2 session prompts, and then we've got selection criteria, which one's going to be used, and then we judge which one's better based on the judge bot, which is also a kind of meta thing, another bot which can be improving itself.
How do you expect the tests of any given bot to be presented to the user. So given that
Be more
when, like, for
specific.
example, we'll make HAL,
Mm.
we will have a large number of narratives that we keep on playing against HAL to make sure it scores a certain amount, so that when we make a modification to HAL, all those tests will rerun. How should I show those to the user, and how will the user edit that list of tests?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Uh, if I was to, now, does the user? Surely there's a thing here which is an amalgamation of the tests, which shows a confidence level.
Right.
And
So, but that's a summary. But
right,
you and I are the bot programmers. We have to get in there, and we also want to make those tools available to people. So, how would you navigate the tests?
navigate. I wasn't expecting to say navigate there. Calibrate. Calibrate is the hard one. Navigate is, well, sure, we can have just some kind of, filter,
Please don't say code.
search filter, and so on. But calibrate is the hard bit.
Calibrate.
Yeah. It's like what's again. This comes back to what's better or worse.
Right, but that's just we can imply that from usage, but we can also crowdsource that from loads of people digging into a response that Hal gave them and being like, didn't like it, should have been this, should have been that, whatever.
Yeah, which is like you see that on the thumbs up, thumbs down. Is this response?
Yeah, oh god, I hate that.
Sort of thing.
So what I don't get is I'm fuzzy around the how do I make a new bot? Like I'm sitting in Hal and I'm like, Hal, I want to make a bot. And then like what, some tooling kicks in that says this is the help that makes bots. And it says
no, that's exactly it. I've not gone through a narrative that creates a new bot. But,
that's the part that I'm most fuzzy on, because you're always making bots, right? That's like the thing you do, and you always have. I see these text files, and I see lots of copy pasting. How would you expect that to work in a machine? That's the narrative that I really want from you.
Okay, well let me do that one today. As a parallel to this one, but it's
like what? Tell me the tools that you would most desperately want to be done. Is it the bot authoring tooling?
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to tell me how that goes, man.
Right, that'd be okay. I'll give you a verbal, but today I'll do a narrative too. I'll leave this for now. I think it's quite useful just having this chain of thought as opposed to trying to make it completely consistent. But the way that would happen is Dave talks to Hal. I would like a bot to do this. Hal and Dave would go backwards and forwards until Hal is happy that Hal discerns the intent for that bot. Hal would then commission another bot saying, right, here's the intent of what that bot should do. I would like you to create that and make sure it's good. So the creation bot would write the session and then run that session and provide it maybe 3 versions of it, because that's easy enough using different models. Put that to the judge. The judge says, in the same way as the judge worked with the article, the judge says, yeah, okay. Number one, the creation bot says, okay, that's good enough intent-wise, or how, go back to Dave, ask more information. Now gets the more information, goes back to the creation dump bot. Creation bot goes, right, okay, yep, that's past my triage. Now let's go to the judge. The judge looks at it and says, yes, given I know nothing about your sessions, so I'm not polluted. given what the intent is, this bot does that, and then the bot's created and is available for other use. So it's very, very similar to creating an article, except you're creating a session. If you think about a session prompt as being essentially an article which has a different number of things by which it should be assessed by, and that assessment is done
Oh,
by
right. Yeah, but so the difference there is that I want to liven that up so that while the prompt is being authored, it's also being executed against a series of either synthetic or human or mixture tests.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's what I want. That's the bit I want. Because otherwise, you're like, write me this bot prompt, and then you look at it and you're like, that looks a bit better, and then, but all you're doing is you're running it in your brain, and we want to stop that.
Okay, well, we can add that to what the scenario just gave. So what I want to do is to keep Hal as a generalist, but Hal can commission a whole bunch of more specialized and increasingly more specialized bots.
That's right, and those bots are entered into the global library, the Stuck store, was it? The help store?
Help store, yeah. So I'll not go into the difference between bots and helps, but they seem damn close to me. But anyway, I'll think about that and come back to another day. But Hal is a generalist. He says, right, I know this bot is really good at building bots. And here's the intent.
Right. Yeah, right.
Shit, that's my hard stop, man.
Oh, you gotta go. Okay, sweet.
Well, actually, it was hard stop -5, so I've got 5.
No, that's cool. Let's wrap up.
So, well, let me write that narrative. But in rough, Hal's generalist, he said, okay, so your intent, Dave, is to build a bot. Fine, I know a guy who could do that. He goes to the bot that knows that, passes the intent of what Dave wants the bot to do. The specialist knows a bit more, goes back to Hal saying, you need to go back and ask more information. And then creates a bot. Now that what you've added there, which is really interesting and good, is dummy runs, where the specialist who's created the bot goes back to Hal saying, right, here's the first output. Talk to Dave. Is that right? And Dave goes, yeah. Hal, Dave, backwards and forwards. Then Hal's happy. Goes off to the specialist, going, okay, so yes, this bot does what we asked for, but not what we meant. Can you change it? Okay, right. Let's try that again. And you could also add different scenarios into that are suggested. Perhaps depending on what the bot is, maybe it's a recipe choosing, judge. It says, is this a good recipe or not? And so the creation bot can talk to the judge and saying, give me a stack rank of the session prompts that were created. You come back, and then there's backwards and forwards. So that's very hand wavy, but that's generally I would see that happening. I'll write a narrative today to have something more concrete for tomorrow to go through that specific thing about how to build a bot. But the essence, the underlying thing, is the same sort of thing. Dave Howe goes backwards and forwards. Howe can commission bots. Bots can commission other bots, which is the bot swarm, but they always refer back. And then you've got a judge who can also commission experts to say, is this good or not? And that good is specific to the task, but also can be generated as a kind of, we've never thought about recipes before. Let's go out into the real world and see what a recipe looks like. And can be then refined, because all bots are available to be refined themselves. And so someone can go in later and say, well, that recipe bot didn't understand this. But yeah, that'll be a really interesting narrative.
Okay.
Let me give a crack at that.
Yeah, man. That's the one I want. That's the one I want, because that is what's required to make all these other things happen. All these tools, like the CRM tooling needs that tool.
Yeah.
The Dreamcatcher needs that tool. Everything needs that tool.
That's cool. Right. Let me do that today. See how far I get. weirdly, it seems quite simple in my head, but I don't know how many words I would need to put down on text
Right.
to actually explain it.
Cool.
And then we can kick the arse out of it tomorrow.
Right.
What I'm not
I'm
going
gonna
to do
stop.
is,
Oh.
yeah, sorry, I was saying what I'm not going to do is to try and reconcile all, the rules in the card game and that sort of thing. I think what it seems
Don't worry
like
about
is
it.
these narratives are the thing that you're going, hey, yeah, okay,
The
that
narrative is what I
that
want, and it doesn't have
yeah,
to be perfect because you or I cannot define it sufficiently that you can actually write this in a way that that's how it's going to play out. We're going to have to make it, play with it, roll it around a bit, and then be like, yeah, it sort of does this and does that. But
yeah,
the the set of tools that we want really is something that makes this and reconciles these rules using our bots so that we come in and we've got a different view on how the Dreamcatcher should work, or an incrementally improved one. That reconciling step you just described should be done by our platform.
yes,
Right?
and also,
That's the
yeah,
we are stable when we have that. When we have the attribution system and the narratives are all managed by an AI system, and we're going around just doing the lawn keeping, like just sort of touching it here and there. The AI maintains the coherency about the whole thing.
yeah,
That's where I want to get to, is standing on that place.
right. I don't think that's okay. I might be shown woefully wrong. I don't think that's um, so far
No,
away
it's
that
not. It's
today
not.
I can put down a narrative, which
It's not.
so the
Yeah.
narrative will be how to build a bot. Now that could be a kind of protected bot, which effectively is with the system that's the Dreamcatcher, or it could
Mm.
be bots thrown up to do whatever that the user
Yep.
wants.
Yep. Yep.
Right, I need to go, man.
Okay, mate. See
Yeah,
you later.
it's been good.
It
It's
is
been
good.
very helpful this side.
Okay, I'll see you later.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.